Good morning, everyone. Such a fascinating topic today. And I have to say that it's actually a historical moment for us because there was no, or actually I don't recall, a meeting with the four so important participants and organizations on the market dealing and supporting the business services sector. So we have four guests today talking to me, and open discussion, as always, heated, and we discuss with no taboos. So let me introduce our guests. I will start with Fedi. So Shadeh Fedi, or Fedi Shadeh in English. So he's the head of department at HIPAA, responsible for the development of the business services sector and the ICT sector. István, probably majority of the guests knows István very well, MD of Szeleni Service Center and board member of AmCham, and he's representing both organizations today on this meeting. Robert Hosszú is the CEO of the National Instruments, and including the shared services present in Debrecen, and he's representing Debrecen Roundtable today, and of course, the head of the service center as well a bit. And then our Balázs, the ABSL Balázs, who is also a CEO of the Trankwalder Hungary and a board member of the ABSL Hungary. So he is representing ABSL today. So now about the historical moment, probably you may guess that the reason why it is historical, because we have AmCham head, we have ABSL head, we have the Debrecen Roundtable and HIPAA together discussing about the future of this sector in Hungary. So the principle of the discussion is just like always. I'm trying to direct the discussion and obviously asking questions, but it is always a very open discussion. And our guests should feel free to comment on otherwise anytime you feel relevant. So we will obviously reach to the part of the questions as well at the end, and I'm sure there will be many. So let's start with the fact, which I don't think that many of you may know, that in 2018, the majority of the largest employers in the Hungarian Business Service Center world, and let me read the companies: IBM, T-Systems, Morgan Stanley, Tata Consultancy, Avis, and British Telecom, participated in working with the Hungarian Service and Outsourcing Association at the time on the position paper representing major conclusions and requests of the sector towards the government. Let me read the three major areas of what this position paper was really about. For the strategic areas it tackled were the following: joint development of a bold value proposition that positions the industry as a high value adding service provider and relies on the individual business service centers as brand ambassadors. Need to form a business services ecosystem that fosters collaboration and knowledge sharing. And last but not least, alignment of the talent strategy with the country's 2025 workforce strategy. So although the HOA at the time was basically the key initiator of this workshop and has prepared at the end the position paper, but this position paper never reached the government. So Balázs, in your role, according to your memories, let's say from 2018, you placed the initiative, you clearly believed in it. What's happened? Why this position paper never reached the government?
Actually, the position paper reached the government. So the paper itself was signed and sent. And I was extremely surprised that the welcome on behalf of the government was very open. So they just told, okay, guys, let's start with this and come together and form a kind of discussion. And why we can still say the position paper didn't reach the goal was that the follow-up basically never happened. Why this position paper actually was made. So there were multiple reasons, and everything that I'm gonna say now is my personal opinion, because we didn't make a research about that. So it's I also, you have to know, I had personal hard feelings about that, because I personally put lots of effort in it, and my colleagues put a lot of effort in it. And at the time, István was the vice president, so we put a personal effort in it. We went even to training how to do professional lobbying and these type of things. So we spent a lot.
Very honest discussion.
Yeah. So we spent a lot of time with it, but even if the participants signed this agreement, and even if the government appointed different people on state secretarial level, these roundtables, these discussions never happened. And one of the reasons was that what I've seen, that the big ambassadors, we can call them like that, they've seen on position paper level the need for being an ambassador, but on operational level, in the everyday life, they didn't want to do that.
You are referring to the large companies?
To the large companies. So why would they invest in the development of young or smaller centers against their own benefit, because they will take their people, they are already in competition on that, mainly in the employment market, or suppliers, or these type of things. And they didn't really want to put effort, money, or anything in the development of the rest of this community. And the second thing is about the community itself. There was no community. There were some interests on a different level, some people who really wanted to do some things, and others they didn't. And we couldn't form really a community that the government wanted to see. So when we sit together with the state secretariat, we have to unite. So we have to represent these things as our own, and it never happened. So and somehow it's just vanished, this whole thing. We had a very nice signature event. We made lots of photos. We sent all these things to the government in a leather binder. It was really nice. And then basically that's it. So this, I think, and this is also one of the root problems what I've seen in this sector, when it's really about cooperation, really about sharing, really about development of the others, unconditional support.
We return to that.
It didn't happen, and for such a thing, it's an absolute must. That's what I see.
So, and we will return to knowledge sharing, and obviously, really, when I look at this panel now, I personally feel it's really a historical moment, because I mean, I'm working with HO and ABSL now for the 4th year or so, and it never happened before in this way, and it's obviously not only dependent on the sector, but we will talk about the sector here, but also about all the players playing this game. But let's return a little bit back to this particular position paper. Please allow me to look at my cheat sheet and sums, because there are some of the important factors here which I would like to refer to. So there was 11 agreed and prioritized initiatives. I've seen that position paper myself. I've seen the outcome of the workshop, and I was astonished by the way that amazing that what work has been achieved and what could have been done, and 4 years passed without basically, making a really good outcome for everyone, and what the sector could do for themselves actually. So among these prioritized initiatives, some focus on positioning the sector on the market and wide-scale branding initiatives in particular. So István, you are a veteran, literally, in this industry.
I told you.
I told you.
I told you.
So, And luckily, your organization is a member of MCHM-BSS, is a member of ABSL since ages. So you are part of, I mean, you are present everywhere as an organization as well. So what's your view? Are we a sector today? In Hungary.
In Hungary, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Of course. So first of all, I think the reason why Celanese is a member of these associations or these groups, because we are trying to find a way how can we collaborate, how can we raise our voice, and how can we find the collaboration with other SSCs, other companies. And because I personally believe that together our voice is stronger than just having the Celanese voice. And answering your question whether this is a sector or not a sector, yesterday evening I was Googling and saying what the criteria of the sector. And I didn't find anything, to be honest, because then that's a sector called something, and that was obviously some kind of criteria, but I still don't know what kind of criteria can we say whether it's a sector or not. However, if you would like to know my opinion, I think this is a sector, because we have so many players. We have more than 100 companies having SSCs in Hungary, not just in Budapest, but outside of Budapest, in the countryside as well. I truly believe that there are some common interests. So for example, all the SSCs, we would like to provide a good quality service, controlling the costs. We would like to have the same talented people, and we have many, many things that we are sharing is a common interest of all the individual players of the sector. So that's why I believe this is a sector. Just connecting to Balázs, whether there is interest or whether there is a willingness of the players of the sector to stand up together, make any kind of initiatives together, that's a different story already. Because what I saw in the last 13 years in this sector, that you called me as a veteran. So there are always companies, leaders who would like to have this kind of cooperation, 30, 40, maybe even more companies and leaders, but we have more than 100, 130 companies in this sector, and the majority of the leaders of the companies and the leaders, what I see is basically they are not really interested in. Maybe they are part of these associations because they would like to know what's going on in the sector, but they are not very active. And we are saying that we would like to do something together. We believe that we need to do something together. Majority of the companies are not active. Maybe they are sponsoring, maybe they are coming to the meetings, to the workshops, but I think we all know that who are the companies, and we can have a list with 30, 40 companies, the maximum, who are really active and representing or trying to represent the sector and trying to achieve something. When we are talking together with for example, with HIPAA, with the government, with other associations, we are trying to find the collaboration points, but it's still just a minority of the sector.
Ferdy, as a representative of the organization, which is basically the number one when someone wants to invest in the country, and you need to position something in front of the potential investor. So how substantial is the brand of the sector, basically, according to you? And what's your experience when you need to position it, or where HIPAA needs to position it? How easy is that for you today?
Well, I would say it's not that hard, because we don't have to position the sector, we have to position the country. So I think we are in quite a good position now. Companies are looking for example, for low taxes, and Hungary has the lowest corporate income tax within OECD. If you look at global tax competitiveness index, we are 7th. So I guess we provide a really good environment for business service centers. So I guess if we are talking about positioning the sector itself, I think it's a bigger challenge to position it inside for Hungarians, for the talent pool, for the government, and not for foreign players, new investors. And also, I think there is a good cooperation between HIPAA and Hungarian or business service sectors within Hungary. Just for example, if a new investor comes, we offer them to make a site visit to an existing company. And I guess there wasn't even once that a business service center refused and said that they don't want to host a newcomer. So I think that there is a good cooperation between HIPAA and the players of this sector in Hungary. But maybe there could be a stronger cooperation between the players themselves to better position the sector for the talent pool and for the government, because it's easier to get through messages if there is a unity and if there are well-defined messages which are a common interest of all
Right.
players.
So when an investor is actually interested in what is going on and whether Hungary is the right place for him to, let's say, build a service center, so is it a strength or weakness to say that there is, I don't know, 160 service centers in Hungary, or there is a 25 years old maturity on the market? Is it good? Is it bad? How do you see that?
It depends on the point of view of the company, to be honest, because some can see it as a threat that there are many companies competing for the talent pool, but also for many it is assuring that Hungary provides a good ground for this sector, so companies can grow, and also it proves that they have senior level talents accessible.
Yeah, thank you. So Robert, Tier 2 city, Debrecen.
That hurts.
actually is the most strong Tier 2 city, which is presented across the region, right? So it is the most significant destination after Budapest, basically, to go to. So how successful is the branding there? What are the challenges you are facing, or what are really cool things you are able to prove that it works in the city?
Good morning, everyone. Let me start a little bit with some background, just not assume everyone knows what is Debrecen Business Services Roundtable. So I'm very proud of that NI initiated this kind of cooperation in Debrecen back in 2018. And just to also put some pressure on people in the building, in the room, that we initiated this after the successful campaign when NI just by itself hired 150 people within 6 months into our shared service center, because we centralized all the back office functions in Europe. I was the lucky one to be the shared services leader for Europe in that 2 years. So we had no real pressure to do that. The only reason why we did that, because we also learned doing that campaign that how poor is the awareness around this industry sector or segment in the countryside. And we wanted to make sure that we educate our people around us, showing them, international carriers which they are not aware. In Debrecen, a couple of years ago, if you said, shared services, no one even knew what are you talking about. And that's what we wanted to change. That was one thing. The other thing is, it is always a smart thing to not just be sharks and compete in the bloody ocean, but try to make the ocean more blue. So if we cooperate and we try to extend this pool who has much higher awareness about a very promising business sector to build your life on, that will help everyone. So that's why we initiated this, and very quickly, honestly, 7 companies joined, actually everyone who was in the city. I think that's one of our advantage. It is still small. So now we have 10 companies in the Business Services Roundtable, and it was interesting hearing what was in that paper. Employee value proposition for the sector in Debrecen was defined in 2018. We did that. We communicated that, we created media content, start to talk about and share in the society around Debrecen, in the universities, even in the media, local media, is that what is this whole sector all about? And then we defined a lot of educational directions. Of course, the Debrecen University was in the center of that initiative. By now, in the last couple of years, we established 6 official course where the students will get credits for that in 6 languages. In the Debrecen University, we already reached roughly 1,000 students in the last 2 years. altogether, the headcount is 6,000 in these service centers in Debrecen. So just to make it relative, when you reach 1,000 students, we also were able to create a program for teachers, middle high school teachers, where in their professional career advancement, they can get credit if they learn about the business service sector, and we already reached like 70 of them, which is a big inspirational factor for the middle school students. So back to your question, I think we were able to pretty quickly, very effectively start to raise awareness, especially on the university level, and especially on the middle school level. And going forward, we just met 2 weeks ago, all the leaders of the centers, and we started to modify a little bit our value proposition, focusing more on the IT sector, because we started with languages, but now even the profile in Debrecen started to shift more toward IT. So we said, actually, it's not my interest, but the interest of majority who is in the room. So we said, let's keep the language focus and add the IT lag into that. So that's our newest effort. We just kicked this off 2 weeks ago. So by September 2023, our goal is to have an official course in the IT department of the Debrecen University.
Now, it sounds like, perfect relation, right?
No.
So it's not.
Funny.
What are the learning lessons,
Yeah.
basically, or challenges which you were facing? Because, closing together, I don't know, 10 company leaders in one room and say, okay, what is good for me is good for you as well, let's do it together. So what made them work together? What made you work together?
Again, I think one advantage is small, but still, we created some kind of ground rules at the beginning. One most important for me, which I can represent as one of the person who actually initiated this, is that I will put always my brand behind my back when we are together. So it's not an I. And without mentioning names or everything, I've been on meetings here in Budapest, working with the segment leaders here, because I was very interested in the beginning. And the reason why I stepped back when I hear that question in the room, in a cooperation between service center leaders here in Budapest. So what is my airtime? What is my company's airtime in this and this event? When I hear that question, no, thank you. Because this is not about your airtime when you try to cooperate. It is about the airtime of the segment, or the sector, sorry. And I think, and at the beginning, we had events when we appeared in the university and someone started to, give out flyers about their companies. And we in a very, I would say, gentle way, we said, no. This is not, we have the sector branding. I'm not in an I shirt. You should not do that. And we just agreed on that. And in the first 6 months, I would say we kind of agreed on these ground rules, but it was never perfect. But I think there are leaders in this team who making sure that when something happens, which will, distort the original idea of this whole thing, will intervene in a very nice way and say, hey.
It's a question really for all of you. So, I mean, when I'm listening to you, actually, it's like, sorry to say, my heart is melting, because it's really, oh my God, I wish to see that overall nationwide. I mean, is it a very futuristic idea, or will it happen at all? You think that we could do something like this nationwide or countrywide? So do the same example in Pécs and Szeged and whatever, and collaborate in Budapest similarly, like they somehow managed to do that in Debrecen? István, let's start with you.
That's a good question, because I believe, yes, we can do this kind of collaboration or cooperation in Budapest, in Pécs, in Debrecen, but there is a big scale, and you say that it's a nationwide, which I think is really the end of the scale. And if you would like to have my open and honest opinion, because this is what we promised, I do not believe that this would happen in the very near future. Yes, there are common interests of the companies, but as I said at the beginning, the interest of the company is basically to provide good quality, control the cost, and yes, we are also fishing from the same talent pool, and we would like to have talented people. So for example, yes, there is common interest, for example, to increase the awareness of the sector, just to make sure that, for example, when we are hiring, then the people who are our target group, for example, will have some information about why it's good to come to the shared service world and why it's not a call center sector or something like that. That's absolutely a common interest, and maybe this is something where we can have more and more companies to work together and we can increase even the collaboration within the companies. But when we are saying, for example, sharing information, trainings and things like that, I see the willingness less and less when we are going to this direction and discussing these kind of points.
I think your view as an external to an extent.
Yeah, I think that it seems futuristic now to have one big nationwide organization. Even in the future, I guess that there could be maybe an umbrella organization under which there are regional or city level organizations. And why? Because I think that companies can really cooperate locally. They face challenges locally. They can connect locally much better than on a national scale. And also in Budapest, there are many companies, so it is much harder to find the common ground for, I don't know, more than 100 companies than for 10 or 20. And also, if you want to make a nationwide organization, it will be just our country. It will be Budapest headed, and maybe regional, I don't know, big university cities would stay tier 2 even within the organization, and their opinion wouldn't weigh as much as organizations within Budapest. And maybe because they are facing different challenges.
What is exactly the question?
The question is whether you see across Hungary, basically, cooperation in a sense of becoming a sector and branding it as one.
My short answer is no. But put it in longer, that for me it's similar. It's quite similar to the environmental and global warming symptoms. We all agree that it's needed. We all agree that we should do something about it. But when it comes about going by tram on a rainy day to work, or using I don't know, plastic bags from the shop, or these type of things, then we make our everyday decision against all these wishes. So this was also my learning curve. The umbrella organization is right there. ABSL is exactly, that's what it's built for. It's even in the statute. More than half of the centers are already members. So there's, and it doesn't matter. We don't need multiple umbrella organization because the umbrella organization is not really a prime brand. It's a sub brand. It's not something that we need multiple of that. But when somebody is asking what is in it for me, it's a completely ill thinking. There's nothing. What you can bring into it. And the reason why there's a fee is because there are people are working in it who is doing a job for you to enable you to do something with your industry, to your industry. And that has a cost, and the cost is really not that significant. And when they are asking from AmCham, from ABSL or from any other, what is in it for me? It's not the movie ticket. Yeah, it's and you decide you like it or not. And they don't see it in this way. They don't want to put into it. And I was lucky enough to be in on the first official meeting of this roundtable. And yes, they had lots of problems. You even started with the scandal of the university. Someone, the dean or somebody was not invited or something, and then it was a mistake, whatever. It was a big scandal.
Challenges happen.
Yeah, so they really screwed up at that time. But everybody's seeing this as a particular issue. And their goal didn't change just because of that. They didn't break up just because of that. They still wanted to do, and yeah, it was not that good. But nobody questioned the reason why they are there, and they didn't want an umbrella organization or one particular member or person to make this happen, because everybody put on the table what and the weird thing is that there's a significant overlap between the Debrecen Roundtable and this specific panel who made this countrywide position paper. And the same companies could do it in Debrecen and cannot do it on a country level, or cannot do it
in a more significant
in
city,
Budapest.
yeah, representing.
And I just don't get it. I don't know why.
Right. It's actually very interesting what you are saying, and without referring to any company or whatsoever, but we recently had really a weird discussion about large company basically saying that, you know, as you say, it's not a movie ticket, right? They don't want to carry the smaller ones on their back. And they asked, you know, ABSL should position them in front of the government and should provide value from that perspective. And I was wondering, actually, after reading and being really astonished on the position paper, that wow, why we are not there, that how can you represent someone who doesn't want to be represented at the end, or doesn't want to put the effort to be represented? How can you be an organization to position anyone's whatever opinion, wish, will, if he's not there?
You can't.
Anywhere, actually, doesn't want to share, doesn't want to contribute, doesn't want to pay, but wants to be represented. Where is that in the world, in anywhere where you can actually do that?
It's a one particular problem, but I think we have to analyze this a little bit, because maybe this sector in reality doesn't want to be represented. There are some members who wants to do something. Let's support them, because then they will have a competitive advantage in long term. But maybe it shouldn't be a sector. I don't know. I'm just it's a provocative thing. But lots of people are sitting here and thinking about it and interested in it. But I don't know if they just don't want to. They just want to keep the pace with others and see what's going on. It's about information. Information sharing is fine. And the other thing, there are some others who can really and want to do something, and focus on them. And maybe that would be the advice for HIPAA, for the government, and make them more competitive, even if it's big, large, small. If they want to unite, if they want to do things together. Nobody told the IT companies in the US that they should go to the desert in a small village. Now it's called Silicon Valley, and develop some new thing. They just made it, then they got supports. They get even more support then, and now they are ruling the whole thing. So and others like HP, they didn't participate, for example. They didn't have to, but they lost.
Let's go back a little bit to this position paper and the 11 initiatives and prioritized initiatives which were there actually. And we talked a little bit about the sector branding, and there's a lot to do. And I'm sure I hope there will be many questions coming for discussions as well. But there were also a few related to accessible employment in Hungary. And I mean, since that position paper was done, I mean, the world stands on its head. COVID, I don't know how many waves, and obviously war and economic challenges and whatsoever. So, and the world of service centers is changing as well. It's changing in the region, it's changing in Hungary, and I think we all can agree that you know, the Hungary, or actually Budapest in particular, is not the most cheap place to place EP resource anymore. So there are different perspectives which the sector should open or provide, and what are really the major key elements which, you know, which are there for investors to consider. And I think it's languages, and basically high value tasks, which on the long run, because of the raising salary issues, will come to play. Now, Fedi, are you aware of any benchmarking studies in the region whether employment is easier elsewhere than at home, or is it easy at home, you think?
To be honest, I haven't read anything like that. So I guess we have quite the same challenges within the region, and it is that and not just for high value added jobs. I mean, for all jobs, talent pool is oversaturated, and I think to tackle this issue within Hungary, I can only talk about Hungary. Within the sector, we have to support automatization of lower value added tasks, and we have to develop the talent pool to be able to enter higher value added positions. And also we could emphasize more about trainings to just like the roundtable in Debrecen is doing, to widen the talent pool and to drive more workforce to higher added value positions. This is an aim of the government as well. When there was a shift from made in Hungary to invested in Hungary, we want to emphasize more on higher value added jobs, employers, research and development projects. But there is a big challenge that Budapest is a big bubble, and it is really oversaturated. So I think we have to drive, and this is one of our aims, to drive more companies to the countryside, to big university cities, and develop the sector there as well. And I think in this term there are some competitor countries like Poland, for example, where they have other urban centers.
Many centers.
Yes, which are well developed. So I think this is one thing to consider when looking in the region, that we have to develop other urban centers as well. Debrecen is a really good example for that. But we have many other university cities where there is potential to grow.
About the ease of employment, actually, if we think about the languages, and we will refer back to the talent pool later on, but I think one of the discussions, recent discussion, one of the panels was that actually our language skills, I mean, the language skills of the younger population, just finalizing their studies is not that strong as it used to be years ago. So we are not getting that strong, let's say, in this field either. And with the service center world, I mean, there were many various nationalities, working and still working in the service centers. And for some time, there were a lot of, nationals coming from outside of EU, basically, and their, let's say, immigration process took whatever it took, a couple of months, but it was manageable before COVID. Manageable relatively fast compared to COVID time and post-COVID time. And the question is that, I mean, will it be easier on some sense, or how do you see it, Balázs? So what is the experience now? If you want to place someone and you want to help someone, so is it really difficult to place foreign nationals into the organizations?
It's easier and easier, but it's really you cannot generalize it. So back to this paper, there was one very specific item that related only to the government, that we asked to put the specific power numbers into the bucket of easier administration to it's a bad word, import workforce, but to localize, or how to say, people from abroad. And they just simply did it. I thought we had to fight or something, and they received the paper. These are the things. It was signed. Fine. It was like 2 months. So my experience, if real decision makers of real companies are present and say specific requests, that it's doable legally and physically, then the support and willingness is there. The problem is that if somebody is having a best practice and they see it as a competitive advantage and they don't want to share, and actually they block the others even to agree with them or to have the same thing. And what do I mean by that? I mean technology, for example. Everybody was building robots. Everybody was developing telco conferences and online meetings and before COVID. But nobody wanted really to share the experiences, the dead ends, what was working and what was not. And it was clear that's the reason why it was not put in the position paper, because the relevance was high, but the cooperation level was very low. It came out with this McKinsey workshop that they don't want to cooperate. And now COVID forced us to do it, otherwise you can't work. And they started to cooperate. Or actually they exploited all, and no new technology that I've seen was utilized that was not there before. And we have all the technology, we have all so the remote work. Somebody from Nairobi shouldn't be in Budapest to work for a Budapest center. It's possible for a software developer, even in the same or almost the same time zone. So all these technologies, so we shouldn't only think about availability of workforce anymore, like placing people physically. I mean, in shared service center, of course, in a factory is a different thing, but in shared service center, we shouldn't think about physical locations. And it really makes the whole thing easier. And if it's not only the reason for salary arbitrage, and you pay a fair price for their work, you have a much larger access for the workforce that you can utilize. So I think it will be easier, but I don't think that general solutions again can be applied, implemented, and put it on a legislative level without joint agreement and the ability to represent this agreement towards to the
So what
government.
You said that there was no limited interest in cooperation on this particular point.
Yes.
So why was that? So what was the reason? Is it competitiveness? Why?
Airtime, exactly.
Airtime.
Airtime. That's my airtime. That's my technology. No, it's not. You're using Teams. I am using Teams. Should I pay for the digital number module of Teams or not? What was your experience? I don't know. Really.
That's the part.
But that happened. I was there. And this happened, and it didn't happen in Debrecen. So in this manner, when we are talking about, they are the first tier, and Budapest far the second tier.
First tier, which is the second tier, first tier. Tell us, please, about your experience on this one. What did you do that you actually managed to overcome challenges similar to this? Let's say ease of employment. And before you go there, sorry, let me share a rumor. Okay, it's just a rumor.
Mm-hmm.
That the rumor in Debrecen was that basically there is a circle which people are going through when they are being employed, starting company one, then they go to the second one, the third one, and everyone knows exactly of what is the circle, where to come from and how to take the other friend. How did you manage that? That it's, ease of employment.
If it was not a really.
I have never.
Ease of move.
I have never experienced that, but I'm with NI for 18 years, so I have not went around. Tough question, honestly, because again, I hate to say it, it's a small village. So we sometimes gentlemen agreements are working and stuff like that, So this whole thing, so just to say weak points, all right, because now I started to feel very uncomfortable after your sentences. So it is not even formalized correctly. This kind of now the Debrecen Business Service Roundtable on the paper, it's not a formal thing. We don't have an association, we don't have a contract, like nothing. We don't pay fees, but we have a yearly budget. You know how it works? We literally ask in the room, it's like, so we will have a next upcoming event. Who will pay for that? And literally what happens, voluntary contribution, it's like, so you pay the last 3 months, I will take the next one, thank you. That's how it works, honestly. And I know my biggest fear, I don't think it's scalable. That's why I know it is not scalable. That's now actually talking with the others that we have to figure out something, like create something formal, because it is not scalable. But the good thing when a newcomer comes in the city, it happened in the last year also, even people helping them joining the roundtable, or the municipality telling them, hey, there is an association here, do you want to join? And then meet them, and then now they are part of the club. Other things also, flexibility, gentlemen agreements, and things. And I know, again, it's not formalized, it is not working perfectly, but 2 companies said this year, hey, I was not able to sell this whole thing for my mother company. I guess it happens in many places. I don't think this year we will be able to support financially. And we were sitting at a table and they said, as a gentleman, I think we should not be listed as one of the companies of the representative, because next year I will be not able to contribute. And we said, can you have volunteers on the events and help us with resources? And they said, yeah, I think we can. So stay. You will not pay any budget things, but you will contribute differently and you stay. We want you here. And that was a gentleman agreement, and that's it.
How do you manage the resources, actually sourcing part of this? Because the key issue always is that, okay, where is the resource to manage or have this, right? Because companies either afford something or try to support something, or, the resource is always a question.
Yeah.
So how that comes?
We have roughly like 60, 70 people working on these events, or any kind of efforts. It's all volunteer based, everything. The only thing what we do is that we have a project manager who is now an external service provider for the 10 of us. That's the only formal part. She used to be an employee of one of the companies. Then another company took her over just to be for the next year to finance the whole thing, fund the whole thing. And then now we agreed that it is not scalable because smaller companies cannot do that, just took someone over. So we said, okay, now you are an independent service provider and we pay the invoice, the fees. And that's how we do it. Sorry, what was the question? I forgot.
Now, how do you do it basically? How do you?
Oh, the resources. And the only thing what we do, it is very transparent. So we always review, okay, who spent what? And then even like at the half of the year, we say, hey, hang on a second, IT service is already paid, this and this. So for the year, thank you, you are out. Now NI comes, or BT comes, or whoever comes. So that's how. And also, we also very transparent about how many individuals from all the companies working on programs. And in my view, the way I saw it working is that when it is transparent and everyone sits at the table and you see, oh, we are behind on resources, and voluntarily raising your hand and say, hey, you know what, I see that NI and IT did all the things the first half. Me and these other 2 companies will do the second half. I know it's not the professional formalized way how it is sustainable, but that's how it works.
Istvan, I look into your eyes. So you are a member of BSS, you're a member of ABSL, and you are a large center. So how about this volunteering and knowledge sharing? What do you feel? What's your view?
Good questions. So first of all, I agree with Balázs that COVID changed so many things. Most of the things, unfortunately, was really bad because it was hit all of us. But just like in other crises, there will always something what we learn and what we are trying to adopt. And one of them, for example, was what I just realized that because it was an absolutely a situation when we didn't have a chance or to look back and say, okay, in this situation, this is what we did, because it was an absolutely new situation for all of us. But I realized that I personally also started to build my network, for example, within the leaders. And what I also realized that we started to be more honest and sharing practices, especially starting with COVID, that what kind of actions did we implement in order to make sure that we can run the business? How did we arrange to let people to work from home like this within a week or something like that? And what I also realized that after the, I don't know which wave, maybe the third or the fourth waves, I just realized that we started to sharing information about not COVID specific things, not just about return back to the office, but other things as well. It was also about attrition, it was about compensation, it was about benefits. Obviously, we were still looking around first to make sure that we are sharing this information within this group. But this kind of cooperation and honest cooperation between the leaders, for example, this is something what I did not experience before COVID. Does it answer your question?
You say basically that you still look around who is in this group. So how large is that group? Or how can we make it larger? Let's say this way.
It's pretty much the same, and as I also meant, it's a voluntary basis. So basically, I'm open to share this kind of information if somebody is coming to me, and sometimes I'm also coming to other leaders as well and asking these questions, for example, because I also would like to know what the market is doing, what other leaders are doing. I don't want to be always the first one who is implementing something, but I also would like to understand that if I have a question, that whether there is already an answer on the market, and maybe I don't need to invent the wheel. So I said, my experience is that this group is getting larger and larger and larger, but it's still not 130 or still not 100 shared service leaders. And I also agree with Balázs that yes, we can try to put together and shoot for 100%. However, I think the leaders learn that even if we would like to do the best for our employees, there will be always people who would like to stretch the fame, who are not satisfied. At the end of the day, we would like to do something good for our majority of our colleagues, the majority of our company. And I think it's pretty much the same with this sector as well. If somebody don't want to be participating and he is okay to do his own agenda, that's fine. That's fine. We will never reach this 100% when everybody will be part of this ABSL or BSS group. That's fine. We have to accept this. If I can make one comment, because just to showing that we are not on the same side in every question, and it was mentioned by Balázs that it's good that because then we have people who can work from Nairobi and it's easy. Yes, I agree with you that after COVID everybody could work from everywhere basically. But one thing is important, that it's important especially for the shared service sector. What our leaders outside of Budapest from our headquarters are expecting from us to provide a stable organization, which means that engagement is important. And I do not believe that we can create or we can increase engagement if people are not physically at one location. Maybe not 5 days per week, maybe 1 or 2 days per week, but people still, I believe, should come. Otherwise, it will be absolutely not important for them anywhere. That what is the logo, and they can virtually work from anywhere of the world. That's true. But at the end of the day, we have to also find a balance. And I truly believe that home office will not provide the answer to everything.
I'd like to use the opportunity to ask a question from this time. So you as a center, and if you think about all the things that you want to do, and some you get headquarters everywhere in money for, and some you don't. Now, if we take off the salary related ones, if you look at those items that you don't really get approved or money for, is there anything that you believe that the other centers that you could do these things with and reach an economy of scale that it wouldn't cost you that much, and sector collaboration could be created? You don't have to name it, but do you see areas at least?
Yes, and I think it's pretty much the same when people are asking that why potential employees are choosing us, choosing the sector, or choosing, for example, the company itself. First question, obvious question, is because of the compensation. And I truly believe compensation is just one element, and it's about leadership, development, career, and communication, for example. Obviously, if the compensation is not well enough, the other force will not be enough also to retain your people. But if you are able to manage the compensation at a relatively right level, you can focus on the other four here in Budapest, here in Hungary, in your company. So that's what I think it should be always important for us. And this is also something where I believe there is a room to cooperate, for cooperation.
Returning back a little bit to basically the development of the country and sharing experience, actually, and particularly knowledge sharing and cooperation. So you mentioned, Fedi, that there is a desperate desire from HIPAA to grow outside of Budapest. And there's a great example in Debrecen, obviously, because it is really a great example to share. So how do you see HIPAA's role in helping us to help you?
Well, I think there is one important attribute of HIPAA, that is a bridge between the government, between official institutions and the sector. So if there is any joint proposition from players of the sector, then HIPAA can help it fast track to the government or to any institution which is competent in realizing it. So I think that is one important factor. And the other factor is that newcomers come to HIPAA directly. So we can channel them to this kind of cooperation. So I think if there is a strong cooperation between local players, and just as it works in Debrecen, if a new company comes to HIPAA, we can directly say that, okay, hey, look, there is, for example, ABSL, you should contact them, and they can give you a different point of view. And it can help the sector itself. So I think the most important thing is that there should be a strong cooperation between the companies themselves. And by this cooperation, HIPAA can much better help all the sector, because if there is some joint statements, as it was in that position paper, then HIPAA and the government can much easier help it in realizing.
Mm. And Robert, the best example which you have so far, how would there be a willingness to share it, let's say, with any other town?
Absolutely. No
How would you start a mission like that?
I think I would invite them to one of our meetings, try to share how we do, and also I think it would be great just to maybe go to the university to get together, see what kind of collaboration we have and how we represent. Yeah, sorry. So what I was saying is that, of course, I would invite them and start to share the way how we approach this and how we work together. But again, I think by now we can feel it's one thing is the formal approach, the other thing is that how it really works between leaders. So it's all about ego also, I believe. And just to share a bad example, because I'm not comfortable saying everything is rosy, I'm also dealing with in the manufacturing industrial segment, because we have a huge factory in Debrecen. We were not able to do anything as a collaboration-wise between the manufacturing industrial leaders in the region. So it's not that rosy. But here in this group, it works, because the way how we approach this, and individuals changed. So it's not the same 10 leaders or not the same 7 leaders. Individuals are stayed, but there are one or two who kind of, I think, hold the, how you say it in English, hold the light and try to make sure that the ground rules are there, how we cooperate.
I think at least what I feel is there is a lot of opportunities in there. Actually, the more we talk about it, the more tangible, feelable it is, how really we could move to any other town to do great things together, possibly. I will move back to to the famous position paper, and I will go back to the talent strategy. And Balázs, well, it's a question which I was thinking to raise because I've seen it in a position paper that there was a talent strategy plan which aligns to the 2025 workforce strategy. What's that about?
Actually, this one was okay. A little background information. Hungary has and had a convergence program within the EU, and as part of that, the workforce strategy is there. What to do with the workforce? It's half of the population, and then where do they go? So there must be a kind of strategy, but it does not really break down to sectors in a way. It's more an approach from the employee point of view, and the typical employee of the shared service centers were not represented there. It doesn't exist.
Okay.
Meanwhile, an electrical technician, an engineer, they are real representatives in a countrywide strategy, and the national, even on European level, the national strategy makers are not considering this as a sector, not even on the point of in a business wise, so in a corporate level, but on employee level neither. It's not considered as a part of the employment pool. It's more than or roughly 100,000 people. It's out of 4.5 million. It's a significant percentage workforce wise, and they are not represented at all. I think it's a problem. So it was a kind of goal how to make this this employee population visible and understandable on the market. It's really hard to define a strategy. What do we do with the 5,000 second-level service desk agents in 2027? I don't know. It will disappear. It will be either first level or third level because of the technology. So what do we do with them? Just an example. So and what is a second-level service desk agent from a legislator point of view? Is it a teacher? Is it a technician? Is it who is she? And it's very hard to define, and that's why we thought it's important somehow to be participate, but there are built-in conflict of interest in a national strategy and in a sectorial strategy. What was it? The main driver for bringing a shared service center to Hungary was cost decrease, and the major element is wage. So the wage arbitrage again was one of the major drive of the decision. Second is taxation. Third is maybe the centralized working will require a smaller organization. So it's cost. But when cost efficiency is done and the centers are here, they somehow should achieve continuously cost benefit or cost efficiency. They have a very hard time, and that's why they have a conflict of interest to bring more centers in, because then it drives up all other wages, or there's a chance, and they are not really incentivized to build in technology, because why do they automatize, robotize, and invest in technology? Just to decrease the need for workforce. And all the subsidies and incentives were based on creating workplaces, but exactly the opposite that they want to do. They want to decrease it by technology. But on every national strategy, increasing employment, even on EU level, was on the flagship. right? So there is a built-in conflict of interest for the exiting center on Europe-wide or national or on a big scale, it's working. But when in a specific point of view of a specific center, it doesn't. And it's a built, and there are lots of built-in conflict of interest. And the idea was to show something into that. And there's in European level, I just Googled it now. There are four key domains. That's how the four employment guidelines target four key domains in the EU that we are part of. So boosting demand for labor. It's still there. This is the first one. Enhanced labor and skill supply. So we want to utilize all the workforce as much as we can. And there is a third one, better functioning of the labor markets. And better functioning means that I can do the same job with less people. And there's a conflict between the first two and this one.
At the moment.
At the moment.
Yes.
And at that moment as well.
Yeah.
So and fairness but better functioning, there are two elements of it. It's very specific as segmentation and mobility. And segmentation as mobility is key, I think, for everybody. And what István pointed out, sometimes the bottleneck is not legislative. Sometimes the bottleneck is not technology, but sometimes the bottleneck is the psychology of employing people, right? That's what you pointed out. So it's a complex thing, and it's not that easy to bring together. And that's why I think sharing best practices and understanding this whole thing, it's really important. Otherwise, there are many built-in conflict of interest that one individual decision maker or one group of employees, they cannot tackle with.
For the talent strategy, I would think that, rightly so, as you mentioned, that there are many different contradicting points. But on a talent strategy, I personally would think that there is a need to go to the basic root and analyze of what we really want to do in 5 or 10 years time when it comes to existing talent, but also who is our next generation talent, who should be our next generation talent, and what are really the business needs we need to satisfy. So what we should be focusing on as a sector when it comes to talent development, searching for talent, upskilling, reskilling, who is skilled, on what we skill, or what we reskill or upskill. So there's so many different, so we could effectively make our own workforce strategy, I would think, as a sector, and say we agree on that this is the way forward. Obviously, no one can predict 10 years from now what will happen in the world, but we can certainly learn from the experience of what happened in the 10 years time. So beside the nationwide strategy, whatever that is, we could have our own strategy, and that includes the second degree, workforce. Secondary school graduation related workforce, and who is able to type on computer, who is able to learn languages, who is flexible to work wherever, work from wherever, and we could do so many different things as a sector to stop build the bubble. And to blow it nonstop, let's say, and kill the sector ourselves, because that's what we do, at least in Budapest at the moment. So
just one thing for that, because how a workforce strategy looks like. It looks like, okay, in Hungary there are 4.6 million people was working in 2020. Now it's 4.3 million. And the unemployment, the number of unemployment is 350,000. And the number of disabled people in Hungary is 450,000. Out of them, 300,000 can work. And actually only 250 is working. So there's 50,000 left. So it's lots of numbers. It's lots of numbers. And these are not actions. These are just how to say scopes where they want to motivate and they want to move the companies toward. Because now it's decreasing employment, so how to increase it back, how to employ more disabled people, what to do with poverty, and these type of things. And I think I'm not sure in that. Maybe I will withdraw this statement that
You can't anymore, it's on.
yeah, I can. But maybe a shared service center, by its nature, they can't really plan in a strategic horizon. So it's 5 to 10 years strategy, right? And I personally, I don't know any center who is planning really 5 to 10 years ahead. It's the largest horizon is three to 5. So maybe we just have to find tactics and find very niches within these strategy where we want to enter to, and like what you did in Page, focus on these initiatives and lots of small tactics and try to exploit from those things and step behind these, instead of having large strategy that by nature the companies cannot fit and the employees are not defined. So
it was, and sorry, István, it is because we loved the discussion we had before the panel started, and it just comes to my mind as an example, and I'm sure there are many companies like that, and the same issues you are just, not issues, but challenges you are talking about, it's very similar for others. That how do you explain the leadership of a manufacturing company about 30% attrition in a center continuously for years? How can you explain that when anyone there is getting a heart attack even from 10%, right? And so the workforce strategy, ideally, if we place that on a long run, the right people for the right job in the right world, we get loyalty, long-term relationship, long-term, employment, and so on. At the end of the day, all this work which comes, not all, but a service center in US means generation of 30 to 50 working in a service center on one language, and they work there forever. They are happy with what they do. Service center in Budapest means that every 1.5 years you have an employee like time moving from one job to another, and it's becoming normal. 5 years ago it was not normal. Now it's completely normal. Everyone is very happy with it that they are at least for 1.5 years or 2 years there in their job. So the workforce strategy, to me, is really a big project. But yeah, well, let's see your opinion about it, István and Robert. How do you see what Balázs was concluding here in terms of workforce strategy? Is it doable, not doable at all? Can we work on this together, you think?
So first of all, just for the record, Salamis never had 30% attrition.
That's true.
Far below than 30%. And let me step back, because at the beginning you said that besides I'm a veteran, everybody is basically wearing different hats today. And yes, I'm the leader of the Salamis Service Center here in Budapest, but at the same time I'm Hungarian, and my most important role is that I have 2 kids. I'm father of 2 kids, which means that as a Hungarian, I still would like to see that investors are coming, or investors who are already having existing investments in Hungary, they are still expanding. And also as a father, I would like to see that my 2 kids has a future in Hungary, which means that they will have jobs, and meaningful jobs, also have opportunities available here in Hungary as well. And yes, I also would like to see that investors are coming, but maybe we should put a table between Liszt Ferenc Airport and the city, saying that Budapest is full, and it would be good to go to the countryside and invest, and especially if they would like to establish shared services outside of Budapest, because I truly believe that there are many opportunities in the countryside as well. But when we are talking about strategy, workforce strategy, yes, I agree with Balázs that the multinational companies has, let's say, 3+ years of plan, because everything is changes. There are divestitures, acquisitions, mergers, and things like that. It's always changing the world where we are living and we are trying to operate. But, and this is, I think, it's a fundamental question that, yes, maybe we don't always would like to grow. So, for example, Salamis has roughly or almost 600 employees here in Hungary. I do not believe that the only option and the only future for Salamis is to grow to 700 or 800. Obviously, if it is the case, then I would be more than happy to handle this challenge. However, I think what it would be even more important for us to change a little bit the scope what we are doing here in Hungary. And this is also referring back to why I mentioned that my two boys, because I truly believe that having more and more, how many times we call this, value-adding jobs here in Hungary, this would also somehow support and even solve the problem of the strategy, because it would be more easy to find, not just to find people to support these jobs, but also retain these people, because it would be definitely would not be transactional type of jobs. This would be more challenge for them, and obviously it would take more time to learn, to understand, and then to maintain these jobs as well. So my strategy, for example, or my company strategy is to how can we find and how can we bring more value-adding jobs to Budapest, and not necessarily to grow, but again, change the scope, change the way of working here and supporting from Budapest. That's a fundamental question, I think. That's the answer to your question.
Yeah.
In my mind, this is the conflict, it not necessarily has to be a conflict, short-term and long-term thinking. We talked about that also when we meet first time. I think there is a lack of interest on the long term from business leaders, because I think if we want to create a healthier talent pipeline in this country, or just a healthier country, I think we should think ahead decades. But it is very hard to justify any kind of action from a business leader, especially a big firm, saying, hey, we should invest into this because 50 years from now, and look what kind of impact it can have. Like one of my favorite, it's not necessarily shared services or business services related, but we are an engineering company. And one of our goal in Hungary is that we would like to increase the ratio of women in STEM, in technical sciences, because it's hugely underrepresented in this country. And I believe in the talent pipeline, if we are not diversifying more and not start to utilize those segments who are inactive, or learning something which will be not even on the map 10 years from now, I think we should have and start to look long term and invest into things like that. And I know it's not easy to start programs like that. What, for example, we did, one of our biggest investment in education is Women in Tech. And we already reached 60 10th grade high school women who now working on projects with NI mentors and creating products at the end. So I think that's the kind of behavior which can change things, I believe, but it's the conflict of short term and long term. And if it's all about cost and the whole interest is about, you know, the next 1 year, 2 year, 3 years, these kind of things will not happen. I don't know what is the magic formula, but I think that's the #1 conflict we have to somehow solve. The business leaders has to have a long-term view.
Teddy, how can HIPAA help in development of the workforce strategy for this in a way or other?
Well, it is quite challenging for HIPAA because we are in indirect connection with the workforce. So I would link back to the previous answer. I think it is important to have very good cooperation with the companies who can channel their ideas towards HIPAA, because they are the ones who are employing and seeing the issues and the challenges. So in order to face them, we have to get information and also proposals to tackle these issues. So I guess everything lies in the good cooperation and the good flow of information, because HIPAA can only act if we have the relevant information and if we are asked to help, because we have some kind of a picture about the sector, but we do not have the full picture. The companies does have it.
Also in this position paper, there was one thing that the problem in Hungary, that we don't really have deep technology. What I mean by that, we are all of us are using foreign technology. Android, Microsoft, these type of things. And there's no real deep technology that's not imported into the country, nor in industry or neither in a service. So if, for example, in the database business or big data business, the government would invest heavily in the development of some kind of deep technology. It can be database to reporting to some artificial intelligence. It shouldn't be a really big thing, but it's a large investment. One company cannot do it alone. There's an example for the Laser Institute in Szeged. So such a thing, but into technology that, for example, this sector could utilize, then this sector has a competitive advantage that all other companies can benefit from, because they can say, okay, I have not only salary arbitrage and adding 100 more people, but I have this technology and I can teach you how to use that because I have direct access for that. And I think these investments at the moment are missing. When we are thinking about what the government could do for a long-term strategy, I think this is a very wide spot. We are lacking any deep technology that could support our competitive advantage against the mother company when we are talking about the value add service, value add positions, value add processes. Yeah. So I think I've never seen any forum discussing about this. But there are lots of Solar's companies who could really advise what could be done. This big data thing, just one example, but there could be many others, and
competitive advantage.
Yeah, that an individual company, even a round table, even lots of companies together cannot afford, but a government could. So I'm missing this one, and if there is any forum where we as companies could share about our thoughts about it, what would help, I think everybody would participate and give a kind of advice. But I haven't seen this yet.
We have a couple of minutes left from the official panel discussion. So key takeaways, what you think from this discussion, and some open mind-opening thoughts you would like to share. Let's start with you.
Oh, so that I have a couple of more minutes to think. So first of all, thanks very much for the invitation. I really enjoyed this discussion. So first of all, I think we need these type of discussions in the future as well, open and honest discussions. And I also believe that there is a room to improve in the cooperation within the centers. So we need to find the way, and we need to maybe set again that what are the minimum where all the centers, the majority of the centers can agree that this is our common goal, and then how can we achieve?
For me, again, thank you for inviting me and being able to share the countryside tier 2 example. But I really enjoyed it. I actually looking for more connection to learn from the bigger centers also in Budapest and see the practices. Key takeaway for me, it's been always very important. That's why I'm working for NIE for 18 years, is the balance of the short-term and the long-term thinking. And I think that's something what can change things. And that's my key takeaway. Everything what we were talking about, if personals in the room only have short-term motivations, these discussions will remain discussions, in my opinion. It sounds good. It's fun to have a discussion like that, but then start to do something, invest into something. That's a different decision. And short-term will be always about just the core business, nothing else.
Well, for me, the main takeaway is the discussion itself. So I think that we should continue it, and we should create action from it. And I guess that we are all open for further discussion. about different kind of initiatives which we could continue. And the other thing I would like to tell the audience that if you have any ideas, questions, issues which can be tackled by HIPAA or the government or any state actors, then please feel free to ask our help, and we will do our best to assist you.
I really like the approaches of the three gentlemen. That my takeaway is there's no magic wand, so it's a magic stick. It's about doing things, and that's it. That makes the whole thing moving. So that's my lesson learned.
So if you allow me, in one sentence, my takeaway is that everything depends on people and who are the leaders leading things and initiatives, organizations, and many others. That if people can sit down and contribute, there is tremendous amount of brain everywhere. It's just, let's do it. That's the major takeaway for me, at least. And we will do from our perspective, ABSL, definitely. So you can count on us. So I open the team to ask if you have questions to the panelists. Sorry? Anyone? You start.
It's a specific question to follow up. We were mentioning that we are attractive because this is a low tax country. And I was wondering, because most of our shared service centers are in Europe and US headquarters, will there be an impact of if the double taxation agreement will not be signed? Do you see that this will have an impact on our competitiveness as a country, or
until now, we do not see that there will be any negative effect.
István, from AmCham perspective, any comment on that? Do you think on the double taxation? Would there be any impact?
Well, we invited the last time to the new US president, and he had the business needs government forum with the membership. And what I heard from the ambassador, he had some concerns if we will not have this kind of treaty in the future between US and Hungary. There is no common understanding from the companies. So yes, we are also looking forward to see that what would be the real impact and whether there will be a negative impact on the companies.
Any question? I have one. I wanted to let others, but if they are not willing to, then I will. Do you think it can be realistic that the service centers can align their complement strategy somehow on the market, not to kill each other, literally? Is it realistic, you think? No, Robert?
If you would like, so please
Go ahead.
If you would like to know my short answer, I think the answer is no. If you would like my longer answer is, I think that when we are talking about comp and benefit strategy, we have to differentiate two things. Currently, we have lots of shared services operating in Hungary, and I think the compensation strategy is pretty much the same. The problem and the challenge is not coming from this perspective. I think the challenges are always coming with the new players of the market, because these players are coming to the market and they would like to hire lots of people within a very, very short time, which means that these players, and don't get me wrong, Stellantis did the same 15 years ago, they are playing much above than the market. And unfortunately, our employees believe, because obviously this is absolutely public, or at least the gossips are circulating within the sector, they believe that this is the market, what new joiners or companies who are expanding basically is paying for the new hires. And frankly speaking, until there will be companies who are expanding or companies who are coming and establishing shared service centers here in Hungary, I'm afraid this will not be changed. And that's the reason why my My short answer to your question was no.
Yeah, I believe we actually had a discussion independently about the exact same topic. I believe everyone will choose the right compensation strategy for the business what they own or run. And I believe I've seen that in Debrecen. There was one service center who said, I'm differentiating myself on salaries, and they are gone, long gone. So of course, it depends on the situation. When you're a greenfield and you try to establish your team, of course, you will pay higher
Oh, yeah,
wages.
long gun. You mean
Long
gun?
gun, yeah, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's in India now, then.
I think yes. I don't know.
Okay.
So again, I don't think the comp and benefit strategy can be aligned because the situation is different. It really depends on what phase is the center in or the company is in. But I think this is also like not just a short-term game. And I think it's very dangerous to differentiate yourself only on compensation. So I see.
Any question? We were very, very practical today. They cannot ask anything anymore. So I leave the floor to remaining networking possibilities then. Thank you so much.
Thank you
It
very
was a
much for
pleasure.
having us.
Thank you.